I rise to support this member's bill, and as background I want to remind members of this House that this particular provision, i.e. a designation, is actually etched in the history of Māori land, because it was in 1975 that the former Ministry of Works decided to designate the coastal land around the Northern Peninsula and dedicate it to a public esplanade purpose, overriding the existing property rights of the Māori landowners, sir. And also, although it will be unknown to the other side of the House, funnily enough, sir, that led to the existence of the Ngāti Wai Retention Land Committee that then fed into the 1975 Matakete March. So don't for a moment think, sir, those who are sneering at this bill, that you can easily roughly ride over property rights. See, this evening, sir, what we're seeing from a supposedly pro-property right party, we are seeing a level of disdain, a level of neglect. They don't care, sir, about the existence of the property rights enjoyed at the moment by owners. They are willing to oppose this piece of legislation, and all it does, sir, is it acts as a check on the powers of the state to be handed out to a variety of organisations. And, sir, let me say, a host of those organisations are no longer New Zealand-owned entities. I, for example, would point, sir, to Telecom. So, underlying the foolish opposition that speakers on that side of the House are serving up this evening is a negation of property rights, a willingness, sir, to see organisations that are not accountable to New Zealanders have this privileged status offered to them in a very loose and potentially dangerous fashion. And my senior colleague, sir, has isolated an example in the South Island where very, very simple but concerned New Zealanders looked to the law to have their property rights upheld. And here's an opportunity, sir, for them to strengthen the process so that when this privileged status is allocated in the future to any other entity, it has to go through a higher test. Now, sir, what the earlier speaker has not said is that Dr. Nick Smith's reforms of 2009 did attempt to look at this. And what they found is that they were steamrolled by transit, by telecom, by utility companies, and by a host of other interests, sir, that are no longer owned or totally accountable or owe any kind of obligation to New Zealanders. And they were steamrolled, sir. Now, a number of us, we sought, sir, to moderate the appetite of the state to hand out this privileged status. Because when this status is handed out, sir, ordinary landowners are unable to go about their legal business unless these shadowy organisations are prepared to indulge the existing landowners carrying out their activities. That's a matter of fact, sir. That is a matter of fact. And for those reasons, sir, this piece of legislation, modest though it may be, serves a prodigious public purpose. What it does, sir, is it upholds the primacy of landowner property rights, something that party over there, sir, is prepared to usher in and usher out when it suits their short-term political imperatives. That's why this legislation ought to be supported. This legislation ought to be upheld because it is not fair for privileged organisations to wander away with this high level of status, not available to a host of other organisations who go through the statutory process, and when they acquire this privileged status, they are able to use excessively the power of the state to squash squash the rights of current landowners, and shame on that side of the
I'm going
House.
to advise the member that his time has